From the Major Label Debut Podcast Network, this is your MLD News. I'm Graham Wright, and the really good news today is that I am once again joined by returning longtime guest, producer, co-host, second mic, dear friend, beloved hero, John Paul Bullock, after a brief absence from MLD News, has returned to us. John Paul, how are you?
I am doing so well, Graham, and so happy to see you.
You've been away working on a mysterious project I sort of envision on some kind of like skull-shaped island.
That is exactly where I was. I was on Skull Island making a new TV show that I cannot mention here, but will hopefully be announced by the end of the year, maybe. I don't know, but I was told not to say anything about it. So for the last 4 weeks, I've been in a writer's room on Skull Island. Thank you, WGA, for the breaks and taking care of us.
You've been creating the interdimensional squid creature from Watchmen
That's
on
exactly
Ozymandias' secret island. Don't take any boat rides on your way home.
What are you watching these days? Is there anything? Are you up to date on Alien?
No, I watched the first 2 episodes of Alien Earth, and then I ran out of time when I have the TV to myself. But I thought it was cool watching that alien kill all those soldiers. It's pretty dope.
I need a new show, so maybe we can send me some recs later today.
My wife and I have been rewatching Lost, and
I'm not going to rewatch Lost.
We're all looking forward to the Drive Shaft episode of Major Label Debut. You all, everybody, coming in 2026.
Could you do an episode about the music of Lost?
I genuinely want to do an episode where I talk to like the writer of the episode about Drive Shaft and whoever they hired to write the song, You All Everybody, and like the consultant they had to show Dominic Monaghan how to pretend to play bass. I think it's such a classic TV band, and it's such a funny version of the rock and roll myth and narrative that we're really all about deconstructing here on Major Label Debut. And they literally get like a brown manila envelope. We got a record contract. It's a surprise. You know, Charlie's just at confession in church, and his brother, not Liam Gallagher, comes in and says, we got signed, baby brother, but he doesn't know about it. He didn't sign it. It's just in an envelope. And then they become rock gods. And I really think that, you know, that is what a lot of people do secretly, just assume it is to get signed and to be in a band. So I think that the Drive Shaft episode is going to be a real special one in the history of Major Label Debut.
I've always loved the meta use of Hurley and Hurley's photograph on that Weezer record. That's like, it's so aggressively and beautifully strange. Although I can't, I don't know what was the single from that album that is in, that
Hurley? That's right. Yes. Where I really lose track. You know, there's a few Weezer records in there where they seem to be coming out at a shocking clip, and each one had some new bizarre fact about it. And the pinnacle of all of it was the record that was called Hurley and had Hurley from Lost on the cover. But there was a conspiracy theory I read about on the internet that Weezer had taken sponsorship money from like the skateboard company Hurley to call it that, and then they put Hurley from Lost on the cover to like obscure the fact that they had sold out to Hurley, the skateboard company. I don't believe this is true. This is not part of the MLD news. This is part of the MLD catch-up portion of the podcast.
Wait, I want to start this, that both they took money from, this is a new conspiracy right now being formed. They took money from Hurley, the skateboard company, and they took money from ABC and Disney to put, it's a synergy of both those, and both of them sort of double helix cloak the other, so that it's so confusing that you can't possibly believe that, but they got paid twice for it. I hope they got paid twice for it, please. That seems like the kind of thing that Rivers Cuomo and his like beautiful genius would totally figure out how to get paid twice for that before that covered all of the album's production cost.
Rivers Cuomo and the career of Weezer in general is kind of like a perfect MLD embodiment of a man who is such an artist and such a commercialist and has synergized the forms so thoroughly that it's impossible to know where the art ends and the commerce begins. And I find it to be endlessly fascinating.
Well, I think we should try to approach friend of Tokyo Police Club, Matt Sharp, to maybe be on this show, as y'all covered Friends of P, the Rentals classic. But also, like, all those guys should be. We should individually interview. You should individually interview every single member of Weezer, as you toured with them too. Like, I mean, that's
that would be much more speaking to them than I did on the tour.
I like that Josh played Troublemaker, right? Like,
yep.
That's actually the only LA Tokyo Police Club show I did not see when y'all played at the Forum with Weezer, because I had to work late at Desperate Housewives, and Rachel and a writer from Desperate Housewives went in my place with his family, I think, because he had lent Dave a guitar or something the day before, but he was also a fan and a great guy, and so I was happy that he got to go, but I was deeply jealous also not to see Josh play Troublemaker.
Yeah, that was, I mean, you also had to miss the 24-minute long 6:30 p.m. Tokyo Police Club opening set where four 19-year-olds sort of flailed wildly at ant size on the stage of the Forum in front of the Angels and Airwaves 1,000 amp wall set up. Those were beautiful days. That's when I was first watching Lost. I was plowing through those DVDs in the van every day.
No. I'm glad that you have. Actually, I'm not glad. I'm worried about you rewatching, taking your precious life that the Lord gave you and using it to rewatch Lost at this day in the year of our Lord 2025. I was going to say,
I like old TV. It's so functional and practical. They're like, in this episode, the A story's this, the B. In Alien, they're like, these guys are all from Peter Pan, and now there's going to be 4 hints and teases for some weird shit that won't pay off until episode 11 of season 4. Mm-hmm. I know Lost invented that, but the first season is so TV.
Mm-hmm. They certainly invented writing ahead of themselves without any place to go and not delivering at the end of the series. I
know it does feel there's no way we're going to make it through to the end. I'll be shocked if we make it through the first in the beginning of season 2 when they're all in those cages, or season 3 or whatever that is. I could see my wife no longer being interested in that.
I do. I mean, I was super into like the polar bear and the smoke monster and all that stuff early on. It's impossible not to love, but
they just found the hatch.
Well, speaking of the fabulous Forum in Inglewood, I just saw 9 Inch Nails there.
Yes, this is, as well as just a check-in on where John Paul and I have been hanging out, which Mysterious Islands. It's also the 9 Inch Nails concert recap review. I myself have never been like a big 9 Inch Nails head. I've always thought they were cool. I've always sort of seen, I was a Radiohead super fan, and you could sort of see that they were a very similar entity to people, and they meant a lot to people, and they were, you know, bold and interesting and pushing the medium forward in a lot of ways. But for whatever reason, I just never got fully into it. But the thing I knew the most about them was that they've been putting on a really, really impressive live show for a really long time. And it seems like they've only elevated that form further.
I mean, I am a person who owns 2, not 1, but 2 9 Inch Nails comfort sweatshirts. I have one that I keep in my car, and then one that I have in my home that I wear in secret. Maybe I'll wear one time on the podcast. But I've seen them 3 or 4 times over the course of my life. Each of the shows has been wildly different. I celebrate their entire catalog, but their live performances are something really unique. And this tour is the best of them I've seen. I really, truly beautiful. And just, I had like Oasis, I had gotten through the pre-sale, like fan pre-sales, the ability to get tickets for this 9 Inch Nails show. But because of the crookedness of Ticketmasters, or I don't know, that like whatever it is, I don't know if it's the snipers or some sort of weirdness, there was not a single aisle seat I could find at either Oasis or 9 Inch Nails, and more specifically, my wife refuses to go to those big shows unless she can like escape very quickly. So we just didn't get tickets for them, and I figured maybe on the day of I'd try the aftermarket, crapshoot and see if I could roll big and get something nice. But thanks to my friend and friend of Major Label Debut, longtime friend of Major Label Debut, Mr. Tim Plumley, I got floor tickets and went with him as his date, and it was amazing. Truly one of the best live shows I've ever seen. And really interestingly, a preview of the stuff that they're going to do at Coachella as Nine Inch Noise. I don't know if you saw that they were sort of like rebranded on the poster as that.
Yeah. Which comes from they did there's like a collaborative portion of their set with the support band, right?
Yeah. So the performance for this Peel It Back tour was actually 4 separate performances. And then there was an opener, which is an electronic artist named Boys Noise, who was on a kind of platform, a very small platform raised above the crowd on the floor, but kind of off to the side. And then when the Nine Inch Nails show proper started, they were on a small but larger than the Boys Noise platform in the center of the floor, where it started with Trent Reznor playing solo piano song, and then each track moving forward, or each song moving forward, they added another band member. So it'd be like Robin Fink, and then Alessandro Cortini, and then Atticus Ross being the last one, I think, while the songs grew in intensity. And then when Josh Freese, the drummer, started playing live drums, he came up as a projection on the main stage, and then everyone's attention shifted. The band lowered down under the floor and then took a secret tunnel to the main stage, and they came up, and the main stage was decorated with this translucent screen in front of the band, and then there were layers of it behind each band member. So Reznor and Atticus Ross were behind a projection screen, and then they had a projection screen behind them that was in front of Alessandro Cortini and Robin Fink. That was there was another one that was in front of Josh Freese, and they did this multi stage projection that gave the illusion of depth, and they did all these kind of really interesting tricks with that I'd never seen anything like it before. It was really fantastic, and it was particularly interesting with Josh Freese. Josh Freese, the Nine Inch Nails drummer, had been in Foo Fighters, and he had replaced Taylor Hawkins, and it had been this whole big thing. And then they the rumor was he was going to get fired, and then all of a sudden it wasn't that he got fired. It's that they swapped drummers with Nine Inch Nails, and he had been in Nine Inch Nails before, so he went back to being in Nine Inch Nails so he could do this tour, and the Foo Fighters got the guy who had been playing in Nine Inch Nails now as their drummer. But so they did this incredible thing, and then meanwhile Boys Noise came up on the smaller stage in the middle. The band rejoined him, where they did a third set at this point of kind of the hits, but they live remix them as dance numbers. They play Closer as a club banger driven by the opening act, which was really neat and interesting to watch them do that. And then they ended up back on the main stage for the last 6 or 7 songs, where they dropped those screens, played without adornment, just flashing huge strobe lights, and played the hits. And it was amazing. And it was almost everything I wanted to hear. But I think they probably played 20 or so songs the entire time. Dude, I could talk about it all day, all night. It was so inspiring. The lighting was extraordinary, and it was just a good hang with an old friend too. I saw everyone going to Oasis, including you, and I was super FOMO as I was trapped on Skull Island making this TV show, and to have had my own little version of it, it was just it was everything I wanted.
It sounds amazing, and it's so impressive to me, particularly because it sounds very contemporary. Just the notion of, having these moments and going to the multiple stages and these things that sort of maybe come from what was traditionally pop concert things, where, it was a lot more of a performance with costume changes and dances and sets and stuff. There's certain, if I can call Nine Inch Nails broadly a rock band compared to a pop band, who have been taking some of these ideas, and it makes a lot of sense in the social media age to have these clear moments in your set that are sort of, Instagrammable, for lack of a better term. But Trent Reznor at this point is an elder statesman who has graduated from making rock music to winning Academy Awards for making, interesting and, dare I say, even sometimes tasteful film score work. And then he comes back to hit the road with Nine Inch Nails, and he's still doing something that feels of the moment and exciting and, if not innovative, at least like a pretty new spin on an old classic. And it's just, it's amazing to me how some people keep the vitality for so long. I don't know how he does it.
I mean, this was full of those moments. Like for when they played I'm Afraid of Americans, he just came out on stage and for a moment held and then said, David Bowie. And the crowd went, everyone knows what's going to happen. And then everyone went berserk. And then they launched into like an awesome version of that song. Or when they played the single from the new Tron Ares soundtrack that Nine Inch Nails did, it had like the same lighting scheme and colors that you've seen in the trailer for Tron Ares. It was like a kind of synergistic. I mean, every moment of it was choreographed and thought out really well, but I was genuinely kind of touched. He had a moment where he came out and said, look, we didn't think we were ever really going to do this again. And now that we've done this, I feel so happy and inspired. Basically, I'm going, it was simpler than this, but he was basically, I'm really glad I did this because we're going to do more, essentially, is what it sounded like. Now, and then they announced Coachella, right? But it was just, he's a guy at the top of his game. He's like on his way to an EGOT, right? Yes. I think he has now Grammy, Oscar, and Emmy.
It's always the T. The T. McCartney too is one T away, but that's an elusive T.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's but look, this guy can do anything. I really, he is truly inspiring. I was thinking about why there aren't Nine Inch Nails cover bands that do it. Like, I'm sure there are, but like, why isn't there why haven't there like the Led Zeppelin cover or an Oasis cover band, for example? And I thought, you probably need, because you need like $500,000 worth of synthesizers, or just like, it just seems too annoying to do it, Although I mean, you could do all the programming, I guess, but it is, maybe we should start a Nine Inch Nails cover band. Would you join me in my Nine Inch Nails cover band?
I would be the Atticus to your Trent.
Oh, I like that.
But you can really, I've got like the Roland Phantom 06 workstation that I used for the last Tokyo tour because it can contain a lot of patches at once. And I can really imagine dialing in a bunch of sound-alike patches for Nine Inch Nails songs. And, on your headphones, it seems really right. But then when you're in the venue, there's just a Nine Inch Nails show seems like it's like a physically visceral experience, sonically chiefly. And I think that it would be really hard to duplicate that. There's something they got going on with all of it, including him being there at the center of it with his muscles.
Well, yeah, I mean, I saw that Pitchfork referred to him as a health goth, which I think is hilarious. 100% who that guy is. But also, like, for as choreographed as the thing was, it was surprisingly raw, especially when it came to it was real people playing real instruments. There were track elements and whatever, I'm sure, but it did not seem to be dominated by that. And I'm not sure how much of it was that. I mean, I'm sure the recorded pieces, it seemed like everyone was like individually triggering stuff. And the sub bass particularly was like organ rearranging in its just brutality. Like it was just that, and then being blasted by lights at unexpected times. Yeah, it really did create a kind of like CIA torture situation where you're like just being like I highly recommend anybody who has any passing interest in it to go see it. I know we're running long on this short podcast, but if you want to talk with me about this, just call me and I will just jabber at you like a monkey for at least 15 more minutes.
The phone lines are open. It's really amazing to me the way that certain these like legacy blue chip rock bands are elevating their entire show, and the ticket prices seem to be rising proportionally, and I don't know which one is driving which or if it's totally coincidental, but it certainly sounds like everyone got their money's worth at this show. But it makes me think about, just to sort of put like a big picture MLD chin stroke filter to wrap it up. I had dinner last week with a dear friend of mine who works in the music business and who Tokyo worked with for many years, who by his own choice is not a character on this podcast. But
I think I know who this is.
Knows a lot about the touring world and the business world, and has been in and around it for a long time. And he was sort of saying how it's this development is very strange, where bands that were B+ or A bands have become A+ bands. And your Oasis's, your Coldplay's, your Radioheads were always big touring bands, and now all of a sudden they're doing 10 nights at Wembley, just making just unfathomable amounts of money on tickets, and then again on merch, and then again on VIP packages or whatever else. And meanwhile, all the bands that were like B- bands are sliding down to being C- bands. This is in terms of, how big a venue they can do, how much money they can make. It's not a qualitative shows, right? Assessment. But like, so yeah, you got to start packaging, or you got to have some, I hate to use the word gimmick because it sounds dismissive, but like this time last year, I was out on the biggest tour I ever went on in my entire illustrious career. And that was entirely because we told everyone that it was the last chance they got to see us. And that drove everyone out, and it elevated our band. And it seems like unless you have a gimmick like that, the only gimmick that really works is like you're an IP, you're Nine Inch Nails, you're Radiohead, you're Coldplay. You've been around long enough. You are known enough that it feels like, I don't know if it's like a safety that people feel spending the money, or if people are searching for some kind of monocultural remnant in this fractured age. But it's really interesting that bands like Nine Inch Nails are doing these amazing things that are artistic triumphs, and I don't want to take anything away from them. But they're like, when you spend $500 on floor tickets to Nine Inch Nails, you don't have $40 to go to 10 other shows that season. And I find myself, I go to 2 concerts a year now, and it costs as much as it used to cost me to go to 70 concerts a year. And it's what it means for the industry remains to be seen. But I think it is remarkable, literally, to sort of look at what's going on.
Well, I think it is significant that all these bands are pre-internet. Like the bands that are filling these stadiums, Nine Inch Nails, Oasis, they're not. Even Taylor Swift, I think of as, like still at the last of the CD era artists, right? Mm-hmm. And I don't know. I mean, I still consume a lot of live shows in small clubs, and I think we're just in a period of transition. I'm not sure what that is, but yeah, I hear you. I mean, for Oasis and for Nine Inch Nails, I probably would have bought in previous years less desirable tickets if they had been less expensive. But no, like the tickets that I did not want were still, for myself and my wife to go to that show, it costs $1,000. It's $300 a ticket each, plus $100 for parking, plus drinks, which are like $50 each. And then you're like, you got to go get dinner and whatever on the way there. And then it's like, for that, you can fly to Spain. You can go to like, it's like, and to see a band that probably most of, not in the case of Oasis, but like a lot of my friends saw Oasis back when Oasis was a going concern. And I'd seen Nine Inch Nails multiple times before. So I didn't buy the tickets. And I think that a lot of people are not going to, but then again, there is the whole younger group. There's the Chapel Rowans, the Olivia Rodrigo, and that might be a thing that I promised myself during this podcast I would not be like, maybe it's just because I'm old. Like I do think I'm moving back towards that. Like maybe it is. Maybe I don't.
I think we have to take it as read in general, both us and probably the primary listenership of this podcast is, that is always part of the stew of all of our experience, simply because we are no longer young, and that's just the way she goes.
Agree. I mean, I don't feel like, I feel like the live concert industry, for me personally, has, and particularly in Los Angeles, it is, there's never been more options, and I'm sure that everyone is getting paid less. Most 99% of bands are getting paid less than they used to be. But every night there's two things I want to see. I'm going to a show tonight. I'm going to see Reverend Horton Heat and the McCharmleys. Messer Chups was originally on the lineup, but they left that lineup and are having their own show at the Paramount. And that is an instrumental surf band that is playing a fairly large venue. And it's, I'm not sure that would have been possible even like 10 years ago. I guess there's like Man or Astro Man or stuff like that. But even then, it's like hard to tell. I do feel like we're in a period of flux, a period of like, what is this becoming?
It's strong locally. It's like if you're lucky like we are to live in a city that has a scene at all, anywhere there's a scene seems to be thriving, at least as far as options and bands to go see, if not, the lucre available for everyone to split. But that really reminds me of stuff like the Orange County punk scene we talked about with Nate and Daniel when we spoke about their book, and rock music kind of started as being a local and regional concern. It's literally easier to play concerts in the town you live in than it is to get in a van and drive across the country to do it. So maybe we're going to see a snap back to that. And again, maybe that the way the internet has sort of like crushed all the borders between where people are from and where their music is consumed, maybe there'll be a converse reaction where there's, live music becomes like an increasingly local concern. It's probably unwise to prognosticate, but we're almost at minute 30, so I'm going to treat myself.
Well, I know that we're going to have big fan bases for our Nine Inch Nails cover band. I think it will be international. I think we can become like those Grateful Dead cover bands that like J-Rad or tour and play like the Greek and as we're just together sharing a microphone screaming Head Like a Hole towards 5,000 people.
Four hue light bulbs doing the best approximation we can of the
just everyone dressed in black. The what's the funniest cover band you've ever heard of or been a part of, or like?
I didn't go see them, but when I was a younger lad, the church that we went to played host to a tragically hip cover band that rewrote all the lyrics to be Christian that were called Liturgically Hip.
That is amazing.
It's the best idea I've ever heard in my entire life.
I remember that at the peak of the like impossibly cool scene at the Smell, when No Age was blowing up and becoming like a sub pop band and all that someone, and I don't know who was involved with it, but started a cover band called Yes Age. It was like a No Age cover band. That's the greatest. The other thing I saw when I think I did see that I'm so glad I saw, it was in Pittsburgh at Spirit Hall, in the basement of Spirit Hall. I saw a cover band that was made up of a group of dudes from a bunch of other Pittsburgh bands, including the Go-To-Beds, that was called Wrestle with Jimmy. The lesser known songs of Weezer, to bring it back to Weezer, that was just like just pick, the worst, in quotes, song on every Weezer album. And then that was what this band chose to cover. And it was pretty aggressively weird. Like, people were there because they liked Weezer, but we're having a hard time. I think a lot of people are having a hard time like placing the songs, and they did not, like, pretty faithful, bad Weezer songs, which is like, they're not, none of them are bad, but but some of them are bad.
That's it's not. I think the best cover band I've ever really been associated with was Toronto's legendary Sheezer, which was what it sounds like, but they only played Blue and Pinkerton songs, and it genuinely, obviously they all kicked ass at music and they were all super cool women, so it was just like a fun night at the movies. But also, particularly with the Pinkerton songs, it actually sort of served as like an act of like critical, radical reappropriation to like put all those fucked up misogynist lyrics in the mouths of women, but who were singing them from like a place of tribute and respect and celebration. And it just created like a really cool, interesting, but also you didn't have to, again, stroke your chin about it. You could just get in the pit, which is what I did.
Well, I think this is for another podcast, but and I texted you this recently, but I'm going to go ahead and say that the Green Album is far superior to Pinkerton. And I spent a long time loving Pinkerton. I still love Pinkerton, but I think that the Green Album is better for a lot of reasons. And I would, if you would like to, I would indulge in like a very long podcast about this with you.
Absolutely. I think the another path in the future of MLD, you know, much like a rush of pod to the head, the in-depth multi-part Coldplay exploration, I think we need to just stopping ourselves from nerding out completely about the records we love. You know, that I think Major Labels Debut's heart is kind of you and me spending 2+ hours talking about Weezer records and arguing over which one is truly the best. So I think we get it on the books. I think it's going to be our best shit ever. And I'll see you at the podcast when we get an EGOT, the Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, Tony podcast award. I'll be there on stage singing Nine Inch Nails with you.
Is Tired of Sex a good name for the Weezer podcast? It's like two men who will never get laid again.
Yeah. They're going to be very specifically geo-blocked outside of our respective homes, so our wives can never know of their existences. John Paul Bullock, it is such a delight to have you back. I have enjoyed talking to myself about myself on this podcast on the news portion for the last month, but it's a hell of a lot more fun talking to you, my friend. So welcome back. Thank you. And listen, we need that giant squid now more than ever. So
I've enjoyed listening to you from a distance, just grasping at air, being like, Graham, where are you? I miss you. I love you, Graham.
I could feel it.
Well, I
do
like
love
the
Nosferatu shadow hand coming across my bed every night.
I love Josh Hook, and I love Greg Alsop, and I love all of you for listening to this podcast. Thank you for putting 32 minutes of your life into this. We've got so much more good stuff coming, including a very special episode next week with one of my musical heroes.
A great episode. I'm so excited to release this one. A whole new frontier for MLD. So stay tuned for that, and thank you for staying tuned for this. As John Paul mentioned, the podcast is produced by Josh Hook, by John Paul Bullock. Our music is by Greg Alsop. Our listenership is by you, our beloved listener. Please like, please subscribe. We're on the socials media, and, you know, get at us with your Weezer hot takes or your furious ire about our Weezer hot takes. We welcome it all. And we look forward to talking to you again. That's all for today, but Major Label Debut will return with more tales, news, analysis, and interminable banter from the intersection of art and commerce. So long.
Bye.